Live from Cape Town and across Port Elizabeth on 88.3 FM. This is Global Outlook.
Global Outlook broadcasting to you live on CII Radio. We're coming to you live 88.3 FM along the east coast of South Africa, globally, channel 603 on the World Space platform. Next up, we're joined by Wasif Sheikh. He is the leader of Muslim Voices on Campus. And we are going to talk more about an issue last week, Islamophobia in the UK, and this issue specifically, a university in London that locks the Muslim prayer room on a Friday, and lots of allegations coming out from the university side saying that there was different things said, very hardline approaches and so on regarding that. And we're joined online by Wasif now. Wasif, assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Global Outlook.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thanks for having me.
Shukran very much for joining us. Thus far, give us a rundown of the events that basically led to the locking and what happened subsequently.
Yes, of course. Just before I do, I did want to just mention a little bit more about the campaign itself. As you said rightly, it's Muslim Voices on Campus. We're a grassroots campaign which started just after the prayer room was shut down, just after the Jummah prayers were no longer facilitated. Alhamdulillah, we've got lots of support from students, we've got support from ex-students, we've got support from staff, we've got support from the Students' Union, and also now we've got lots more support from the public who can sympathize with Muslims who are dealing with these sort of situations. Just in terms of what happened, at the beginning of this year, the university, they demanded that we, as Muslim students, submit the sermons to the university for them to monitor it, for them to scrutinize it, for them to check what was being said was appropriate, as said by the university. Now, we as Muslim students, we wanted to present ideas just like any other group of students would like to present their ideas. But unfortunately, the university, they said because we were not cooperating with them, we obviously refused. We said that this is our right, we can discuss whatever we wish to discuss, and we don't feel that there's a need for there to be this sort of pre-approval before delivering the khutbah. We believe that this is actually a breach of student rights, and we think actually if we agree to this, then it opens up a door for the university to dictate what is allowed to be said in a khutbah and what is not allowed to be said. And for us, that's not acceptable. But we did, however, invite the university to come and attend the khutbahs, and we welcomed them and said all of our khutbahs are open and they're welcome for everyone to listen to.
We look at the situation like doors being locked and really no open line between the Muslim Voices, or rather the Muslims on the campus and the campus officials. But there still seems to be a misunderstanding by members of the public and two very different viewpoints coming out from the Muslim community. On the one end, we hear that it's not really that bad, and on the other end, we hear that people are saying that some of the comments that are being made, not only in this Jummah but other Jummahs, are talking about the comments are mentioning the chopping off of hands and so on, and these things are quoted out of context.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I can't speak in detail about what was said years back. I do believe that they were taken out of context. I do believe there was a context to what was being said. However, even if it was something that was seen to be a hard line, as mentioned, I mean, this was said years ago. I mean, this was said 3 or 4 years ago now. Does that now mean that all students from that point onwards to the end of time are now going to be painted with a brush that we're about to say something which is illegal, we're about to say something which is inappropriate? And that then also opens up the discussion to say, is what was said even illegal? I mean, that student was not prosecuted in any way. All that was mentioned was that some of his views were hard line, and like I mentioned, I think they were taken completely out of context.
Wasif, what is the way forward for Muslim Voices? Are you trying to say that let's have Jummah at the campus and have it monitored, or are you saying that Jummah should allow us to express ourselves as Muslims, but within the ambit of the UK law. And we shouldn't have to be afraid to say that the Sharia says A, B, C, and D, and this is what we will abide by, or this is what we will take our lead from, or are we going to take an approach like some other communities are doing to say that we will respect this part of the Sharia, but we will not adopt it?
Well, Muslim Voices on Campus, we've sought some legal advice on the issue in terms of the university removing the prayer facilities, because let's be very clear, we feel we're being unjustly targeted here. As Muslim students, we should be able to discuss whatever we like. We should be able to discuss anything, as you mentioned, as long as it's within the law. Now, we have to look at this in a wider context. Muslims in the UK, they're actually being targeted as part of a government agenda. On one hand, Muslims in the UK are being told that this is a multicultural society, it's a tolerant society, and on the other hand, we're being told to let go of aspects of Islam, or we're being told to say that certain things do not fit in with the Western society. So just for example, we have some basic beliefs that homosexuality is a sin in Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angered by those who engage in those sort of acts. However, Muslims in the UK are being pressured to actually silence that part of Islam, to actually say, no, we accept homosexuality, which of course we don't, we reject. Other aspects, that politics being a part of Islam. Now, anyone who discusses it is now painted with a brush of being an extremist. And as you rightly mentioned, aspects within the Sharia, so for example, some of the harsh punishments, which are implemented, like I said, in a context, in an Islamic state, not in the UK. We're not talking about the UK. We're not talking about the Western world. We're not even talking about in Muslim countries. We're talking about in an Islamic state, which doesn't exist at the moment, unfortunately. But there is a context to what's being said. And as we mentioned, as Muslims, we should be allowed to discuss these things. We should be allowed to present our ideas. But we are being told that we should not do so. We are being told that we have to be silent on these aspects of Islam and that we should regard them as extreme, which we completely reject. So what is the way forward for Muslim Voices on Campus? I mean, we say very simply, we should be allowed to discuss whatever we like within the khutbah. And as we mentioned, the khutbahs are open for all to attend. We present our ideas as Muslims, and if someone would like to discuss these ideas, then we're welcome to discuss them. And we encourage that discussion, because if we don't present Islam in the correct positive light, as opposed to how the media has shown Islam to be, in this barbaric form, or something where we just go around chopping people's hands off, if we don't present it correctly, then that image will never change. And this is something we, as Muslim students, believe very strongly.
I'm going to be devil's advocate, and I hate to do this, but what I'm going to say is directly as how other people have. We've spoken about this on air before, and the comments we've received from people was as follows: maybe the university has something against Muslims. That's point number one. And secondly, maybe the Muslims on the university are extremists, they are hardliners, and they can't really get along with other cultures and other religions. Your response to a comment like that?
Well, with regards to the first, whether the university just doesn't like Muslims. Now, certainly the way that the university has acted with regards to the Muslims now, with taking away prayer facilities. I mean, Jummah facilities. Jummah is an obligation on every Muslim, and it's something that hundreds of students attend. And it's made it very difficult for us, actually. I don't know if you've heard, but at City University, Muslim students have been praying outside in the cold for the last 2 weeks. And we'll probably have to do this again this week, because we just haven't found any space where we can accommodate some of these students. So certainly some would say that maybe the university just doesn't like Muslims. However, we wouldn't like to think that way. We'd like to think that maybe the university has a misunderstanding about certain things, and which brings us on to the second point, that are there extremists or whatever on the campus that need to be dealt with? Well, our answer to that question is that surely the way to find this thing out is by engaging in dialogue, in positive dialogue. Are there extremists? Definitely not. I mean, if there was something to hide, then we would not be having open sermons. For the last 2 weeks, as we mentioned, we've been praying outside in the cold, and we've had a microphone, so other people can also hear what we have to say in our khutbahs. We're very open about what we say. It's not something which we hide, because we know for sure that there is no such aspect of this extremism. But then it does beg the question, what is defined as extremism? And this is something that I don't think anyone yet has a very clear answer. And as I mentioned, there is a wider context of some who are trying to make very basic things within Islam seem like they're extreme. And this is something which we reject as Muslims, and we will not be pressured into not talking about them. Because as we mentioned, the only way that we're going to tackle this negative view of Islam, this Islamophobia, is by talking about those things which people see as dangerous or people misunderstand. This is what we as Muslims need to be talking about. This is what we need to clarify within the wider community and including universities. Because we know for sure that Allah sent this deen as a guide to mankind, sent it as a mercy to mankind. And at the moment, it's not being presented that way. It's not being understood that way. So we need to present that in the correct way, and we hope to continue to do so.
Is part of your campaign to change mindset, to show people the true beauty of Islam by activating other kind of campaigns, teaching people about Islam, opening the doors of the Jummah prayers, maybe the part that's in English, for other denominations to come and attend and let them see what is really discussed in the masjid and what is really discussed once the Jummah starts, and to change mindset. I think that's the biggest challenge we have as Muslims, is to change the mindset. People see you with a beard, they see you with a kurta or a top, and they immediately think, terrorist, sit away from him on the plane, or they think Arab Muslim guy, we cannot allow him to work in our building, we cannot allow him to have presentations in our halls because of all the stereotypes that the media has created over the last few years.
Well, certainly I think this is the task of every Muslim, and including those Muslims who may not have yet heard of the campaign. And I know at the university there are Muslims who are working very hard to change that mindset, to actually present Islam in a positive light, to present Islam in its true form, in its true light, and discuss it without fear of being labelled as anything. So I know there are sincere people who are doing that at the campus, not just at City, but across the UK, I mean, at universities and outside of those universities. And I think those efforts should continue. But Muslim Voices on Campus is actually there to tackle, to make sure that students are able to discuss it. So it's not necessarily the tool used to discuss these things and to present it, but actually is there to guarantee the rights that students have at universities to talk about aspects of Islam that people might find controversial. But actually, it's there for all students' rights, so that they're able to discuss all of those things which people might see as controversial. And through this, inshallah, through this, people will continue to present Islam in the right way, and they will also have the much-needed discussion on those controversial issues.
Wasif, shukran. We make dua, inshallah, that your journey or your attempt is successful, inshallah, because a lot of times people are misunderstanding the deen. A lot of times people are quoting things out of context, and they don't really know why there's a certain ruling in the Sharia or when the ruling applies. All they hear is chop off hands, and they think Muslims are chopping off hands. They hear pelting with stones, and they say that Muslims are pelting people with stones and killing people, and everything is a jihad, not knowing what the real truth about every part of the Sharia is. Wasif, shukran very much for joining us here on Global Outlook this afternoon.
Jazakallah khair for having me. Jazakallah khair for having me. And I wish you all the best as well.
Inshallah. Shukran for speaking to us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Global Outlook broadcasting to you live on CII Radio Channel 603 on the World Space Platform.